My alcoholic Sil faked a pregnancy to guilt my husband into letting her move in with us. She then accused me of stealing him from her. I'm Anna, 32F, and I've been married to Tom, 34M, for 8 wonderful years. We have 2 beautiful children, Lily, 6F, and Max, 4M. Tom and I met in college when we were both studying engineering. I was immediately drawn to his kind nature and quick wit. We started dating in our junior year and have been inseparable ever since. Tom has always been an amazing partner. He's supportive of my career as a software developer and is a hands-on father to our kids. We've built a life together that I'm proud of, but lately, our happiness has been overshadowed by a growing problem, Tom's sister, Rachel, 30F. To understand the current situation, I need to give you some background on Tom and Rachel's family. They grew up in a small town with their parents, Jack and Marie. Jack was a construction worker with a severe drinking problem. He was often absent, and when he was home, he was either passed out or verbally abusive. Marie worked 2 jobs to keep the family afloat, as a waitress during the day and a night shift nurse. With their parents mostly absent, Tom, being the older sibling, took on a lot of responsibility for Rachel from a young age. He'd make sure she got to school, helped her with homework, and even learned to cook simple meals so they wouldn't go hungry. This created a strong bond between them, but it also laid the foundation for an unhealthy dynamic. When Tom was 16 and Rachel was 12, Jack finally left for good. Marie fell into a deep depression, barely able to function. Tom stepped up even more, practically raising Rachel on his own while trying to finish high school. It was a difficult time, and I know it left deep scars on both of them. I met Tom in our freshman year of college. He was quiet and serious, always studying or working part-time jobs. It took months before he opened up to me about his family situation. I remember feeling in awe of his strength and resilience. As we got closer, I also started to notice how often he'd get calls from Rachel. She'd need help with school projects, advice on friend drama, or just someone to talk to. Tom always dropped everything to be there for her. At first, I found their closeness endearing. I'm an only child, so I thought this was just how sibling relationships worked. But as our relationship progressed, Rachel's constant presence in Tom's life started to feel intrusive. When Tom and I got engaged after graduation, Rachel's behavior took a turn. She showed up at our apartment unannounced the night we told her, crying and accusing Tom of abandoning her. Tom spent hours consoling her while I sat awkwardly in our bedroom, feeling like an outsider in my own home. During our wedding planning, Rachel insisted on being involved in every decision. She'd call Tom with emergencies whenever we had date nights or meetings with vendors. At the wedding itself, she gave a speech that was more about her relationship with Tom than our marriage. She barely acknowledged me and referred to herself as the most important woman in Tom's life. After we got married, things got worse. Rachel would call Tom at all hours of the night for the smallest things. She'd claim she had an emergency, but it would turn out to be something trivial like needing help changing a light bulb or feeling lonely. Tom, being the caring brother he is, would often go to help her, even if it meant leaving in the middle of our date nights or family time. I tried to be understanding, remembering their difficult childhood. But it started to wear on me. I talked to Tom about it, and he agreed to set some boundaries with Rachel. He told her she couldn't call after 9 p.m. unless it was a real emergency, and he wouldn't drop everything to run to her aid for minor issues. Rachel didn't take this well. She accused me of turning Tom against her and trying to destroy their relationship. She started showing up at our house unannounced, often when Tom wasn't home. She'd make snide comments about how I couldn't possibly understand their bond or how I wasn't good enough for Tom. When I got pregnant with Lily, Rachel's behavior escalated. She insisted on coming to all of my doctor's appointments, saying she needed to be there for her baby. She threw a fit when we didn't make her the godmother, claiming it was her right as Tom's sister. After Lily was born, Rachel would show up at odd hours, wanting to hold the baby. She'd make comments about how Lily looked just like her, ignoring any resemblance to me. Things improved slightly when Max was born 2 years later. Rachel seemed less interested in him, which was a relief but also odd. She continued to focus all her attention on Lily and Tom, often ignoring Max and me completely. Throughout all of this, Tom has tried to mediate. He loves his sister and feels responsible for her, but he also sees how her behavior affects our family. We've had countless arguments about Rachel over the years. Tom often feels torn between his loyalty to his sister and his commitment to our family. Things came to a head last month at Lily's 6th birthday party. We had planned a small gathering with family and a few of Lily's friends from school. Rachel showed up an hour late, clearly drunk and wearing an inappropriately revealing outfit for a child's party. She stumbled into the backyard and immediately latched onto Tom, hanging all over him and ignoring everyone else. I was mortified, but I tried to keep my cool for Lily's sake. Tom gently tried to disengage from Rachel and get her to sit down, but she wouldn't let go. When it was time to sing happy birthday and cut the cake, Rachel insisted on standing next to Tom, pushing me aside. I saw red but bit my tongue. The final straw came when Rachel announced she had a special gift for Lily. She pulled out a framed photo of herself and Tom from when they were kids, with a note that read, "To my favorite niece, never forget that your daddy was mine first." I was stunned, and so was everyone else at the party. Lily looked confused, and Tom's face went pale. I quietly asked Rachel to leave, but she refused, saying she had every right to be there. Tom finally stepped in and told her she needed to go home and sober up. Rachel burst into tears, accusing Tom of abandoning her and screaming that I had stolen him away. She knocked over the cake table in her tantrum, ruining Lily's birthday cake and sending our guests scrambling. Tom had to physically remove Rachel from our property while she kicked and screamed. Our neighbors came out to see what the commotion was about, and I was left to explain to a group of shocked parents and crying children why the party had to end early. After the dust settled, Tom and I had a long, difficult conversation. He admitted that Rachel's behavior had been out of control for a long time, but he'd been in denial about how bad it had gotten. He agreed that we needed to set firm boundaries with her, including cutting off contact if she didn't get help for her issues. We decided to write Rachel a letter explaining that her behavior at the party was unacceptable and that she needed to seek professional help for her unhealthy attachment to Tom. We made it clear that until she got help and showed real change, she wouldn't be welcome in our home or around our children. It's been a week since we sent the letter, and we haven't heard back from Rachel. Tom's mother called us, begging us to forgive Rachel and give her another chance, but we're standing firm. This situation has been building for years, and we can't let it continue to affect our family. I feel terrible for Tom. I know he loves his sister and feels responsible for her in many ways. But I also know that enabling her behavior isn't helping anyone. I'm worried about how this will affect our relationship with Tom's family, especially his mother. But I have to put my children and my marriage first. Am I wrong for wanting to cut Rachel out of our lives? Should we have handled this differently? I'm at a loss and could really use some advice on how to move forward from here. Update 1: It's been about a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. It really helped Tom and me feel more confident in our decision to set boundaries with Rachel. A week after we sent the letter, Rachel finally responded. She sent a long, rambling email full of accusations and guilt-tripping. She claimed that I had always been jealous of her relationship with Tom and that I was manipulating him to cut her out of his life. She said that Tom was the only person who truly understood her and that by pushing her away, we were condemning her to a life of loneliness. In her email, Rachel brought up incidents from their childhood that I'd never heard before. She talked about times when Tom had protected her from their father's drunken rages, or how he'd go hungry to make sure she had enough to eat. She accused Tom of forgetting where he came from and abandoning her just like their father did. Tom was devastated by the email. He felt guilty and conflicted, wondering if we were being too harsh. We had a few tense days where we argued about how to handle the situation. I stood my ground, reminding Tom of all the ways Rachel had crossed the line over the years, culminating in the disaster at Lily's birthday party. During one of our arguments, Tom revealed something he'd never told me before. Apparently, when Rachel was in high school, she'd attempted suicide. Tom had been the one to find her and get her to the hospital. He'd never forgiven himself for not seeing the signs, and it was part of why he'd always felt so responsible for her well-being. This revelation helped me understand Tom's struggle better, but it also reinforced my belief that Rachel needed professional help, not codependency. Eventually, Tom agreed that Rachel's email only proved how unhealthy her attachment to him was. He wrote back, reiterating that we loved her but that her behavior was unacceptable. He again urged her to seek professional help and said that until she did, we would be maintaining our distance. Rachel didn't take this well. She started calling Tom's phone constantly, leaving voicemails that ranged from tearful pleas to angry rants. When Tom didn't respond, she began showing up at his workplace. His boss had to ask her to leave several times, and Tom was embarrassed and stressed about the situation affecting his job. Things escalated when Rachel created a Facebook post accusing me of stealing her brother and turning him against his family. She shared old photos of her and Tom, writing long captions about their close bond and how I was destroying it. Some of Tom's extended family members and old friends commented, taking Rachel's side without knowing the full story. One of Rachel's posts particularly upset me. She shared a photo from our wedding day, one where she was standing between Tom and me. The caption read, "Remember when we were all happy? Before she came between us?" It was infuriating because Rachel had actually pushed her way into that photo, and I remember feeling annoyed about it at the time. Tom was furious when he saw the posts. He finally snapped and wrote a public response, detailing Rachel's behavior over the years and explaining why we had to set boundaries. He asked people not to take sides in a family matter they didn't fully understand. Most of the comments were deleted after that, and Rachel took down her original post. Throughout all of this, Tom's mother has been caught in the middle. She keeps calling us, crying and begging us to reconcile with Rachel. She says Rachel is spiraling and that cutting her off is cruel. Tom tried to explain our position, but his mother doesn't seem to understand the severity of the situation. Last week, things took an even more serious turn. Rachel showed up at our house late one night, clearly drunk. She was pounding on the door and screaming for Tom to come out. Our children woke up crying, terrified by the noise. I called the police while Tom tried to calm Rachel down through the door. When the police arrived, Rachel tried to convince them that we were holding Tom against his will. She spun a wild tale about how I had brainwashed Tom and was keeping him from his real family. The officers quickly realized she was intoxicated and escorted her off our property. They asked if we wanted to press charges, but we declined, hoping this would be a wake-up call for Rachel. The next day, Tom called Rachel's best friend, Lisa, 31F, to express his concerns about Rachel's mental state and drinking. Lisa revealed that Rachel had been struggling with alcohol abuse for months but had been hiding it from her family. Apparently, Rachel had lost her job 6 months ago due to her drinking but had been pretending to go to work every day. She'd been living off her savings and maxing out credit cards to keep up appearances. Lisa also shared that Rachel had been in a series of toxic relationships over the past few years. She jumped from one boyfriend to another, always choosing men who were emotionally unavailable or abusive. Lisa believed that Rachel's obsession with Tom was partly due to him being the only stable male figure in her life. This information gave us a new perspective on Rachel's behavior. While it didn't excuse her actions, it helped us understand the depth of her issues. Lisa agreed to try and convince Rachel to seek help, and we're hopeful that having her friends' support might make a difference. As of now, we're still maintaining our distance from Rachel. Tom is in contact with Lisa to stay updated on Rachel's condition, but we're firm in our decision not to engage directly until Rachel gets professional help. It's been hard on Tom, and I can see the toll it's taking on him. He started seeing a therapist to work through his feelings of guilt and responsibility for Rachel. Our children are still shaken by Rachel's late-night visit, and we've had to have some difficult conversations with them about why Aunt Rachel can't visit right now. Lily keeps asking if Aunt Rachel is mad at her, thinking she did something wrong at her birthday party. It breaks my heart to see how this situation is affecting them. I'm trying to stay strong for Tom and our kids, but I'd be lying if I said this wasn't wearing on me too. The stress of the situation has been intense, and I worry about the long-term effects on our family. But I also know we're doing the right thing by setting these boundaries. We're taking things one day at a time and hoping that Rachel will eventually realize she needs help. In the meantime, we're focusing on our immediate family and trying to create a stable, peaceful environment for our children. I'll update again if there are any significant developments. Thank you all again for your support. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wish I had better news to share. Unfortunately, the situation with Rachel has only gotten more complicated and stressful. About a month ago, we received a call from the local hospital. Rachel had been admitted after a serious car accident. She had been driving under the influence and crashed into a tree. Thankfully, no one else was hurt, but Rachel suffered a broken leg and some internal injuries. Tom was torn about whether to visit her in the hospital. On one hand, she was his sister and she was hurt. On the other, we had been clear about maintaining our boundaries until she got help. After much discussion, we decided that Tom would visit her once, make sure she was okay, and then step back again. When Tom went to the hospital, Rachel broke down crying. She apologized for her behavior and promised to get help. She said the accident was a wake-up call and that she realized how out of control her life had become. Tom was cautiously optimistic but told her that actions speak louder than words, and we'd need to see real change before we could consider letting her back into our lives. Rachel was released from the hospital a week later and moved in with Tom's mother for her recovery. At first, it seemed like she might be turning a corner. She joined an outpatient rehab program and started attending AA meetings. Tom's mother kept us updated, and it sounded like Rachel was finally taking steps to address her issues. During this time, we learned more about what had been going on in Rachel's life. Apparently, she had been in a relationship with a man named Derek, 37M, for the past year. Derek was also an alcoholic and had a history of domestic violence. Rachel had been too ashamed to tell anyone about the relationship or ask for help. The night of her accident, she had been fleeing Derek's house after a particularly bad fight. This information made Tom feel even more guilty about cutting Rachel off. He struggled with the idea that if we had been there for her, maybe she wouldn't have ended up in such a dangerous situation. I had to remind him that we couldn't have known, and that our boundaries were still necessary for our own family's well-being. However, about 3 weeks into her recovery, things took a turn for the worse. Rachel stopped going to her rehab sessions and AA meetings. Tom's mother caught her drinking again and confronted her about it. Rachel flew into a rage, accusing her mother of taking my side and not understanding how hard things were for her. We later found out that Rachel had been in contact with Derek again. He had been calling her constantly, alternating between apologies and threats. Rachel, vulnerable and isolated, had started talking to him again despite the obvious dangers. The situation came to a head last week when Rachel showed up at our house again. This time, she wasn't drunk, but she was clearly unstable. She was crying and begging Tom to let her move in with us, saying she couldn't stay with her mother anymore. She promised she'd be on her best behavior and would help with the kids. Tom tried to calmly explain why that wasn't possible, reminding her of the boundaries we had set. Rachel didn't take it well. She started screaming that I had turned everyone against her and that I was keeping her from her real family. She threatened to take us to court for grandparents' rights, even though she's not a grandparent, so she could see our kids. In the midst of her tirade, Rachel revealed that she was pregnant with Derek's child. She said she needed Tom's help now more than ever, and that he couldn't abandon her and his future niece or nephew. This revelation stunned us both, adding another layer of complexity to an already difficult situation. I had to usher our children upstairs as they were frightened by Rachel's outburst. Tom eventually managed to get Rachel to leave, but not before she made a scene that had our neighbors peeking out their windows again. After this incident, we decided we needed to take more drastic action. We consulted with a lawyer about getting a restraining order against Rachel. The lawyer advised us that based on Rachel's pattern of behavior, we had a strong case for a temporary order. However, he also warned us that Rachel's pregnancy could complicate matters, especially if she tried to use it to gain sympathy from the court. We filed for the restraining order the next day. It was one of the hardest things Tom has ever had to do, but we both agreed it was necessary for the safety and well-being of our family. The temporary order was granted, and Rachel was served with the papers a few days ago. As expected, this has caused a huge rift in Tom's family. His mother is beside herself, saying we've gone too far and that we're destroying the family. She's especially upset about the idea of her grandchild being born into this situation. Some of Tom's aunts and uncles have sided with Rachel, sending us angry messages about how we're overreacting and being cruel to a pregnant woman in need. Tom is struggling with guilt and second-guessing our decision. The news of Rachel's pregnancy has hit him hard, and he's torn between wanting to protect our family and feeling responsible for his sister and her unborn child. We've had several emotional conversations about it, but we're both standing firm in our decision to maintain boundaries. Our kids have been asking questions about why everyone in the family is fighting, and it's challenging to explain the situation in a way they can understand. Lily, in particular, seems to sense the tension and has been having nightmares. We've been trying to shield them from the drama as much as possible, but it's not easy. I'm exhausted and stressed, but I know we're doing the right thing. We can't continue to let Rachel's behavior disrupt our lives and potentially put our children in harm's way. I just hope that this will finally be the wake-up call Rachel needs to get serious about getting help, not just for her sake but for her unborn child's as well. We have a court date set for next month to determine if the restraining order will be made permanent. Tom and I are both anxious about it, but we're trying to stay focused on what's best for our immediate family. We're also discussing how to handle the situation with Rachel's pregnancy and what role, if any, we should play in our future niece or nephew's life. I'll update again after the court hearing. Thank you all for your continued support and advice during this difficult time. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm relieved to report that things have finally started to settle down. The court hearing for the permanent restraining order was a difficult day for everyone involved, but ultimately, the judge ruled in our favor. The restraining order was made permanent, requiring Rachel to stay at least 500 feet away from our home, our children's schools, and Tom's workplace. The judge took Rachel's pregnancy into consideration but determined that her pattern of behavior posed a significant risk to our family's safety and well-being. The court also mandated that Rachel attend rehab and undergo psychological evaluation as conditions for any future revision of the order. The aftermath of the court decision was tough. Tom's mother was devastated and initially refused to speak to us. Some family members continued to send angry messages, accusing us of tearing the family apart. But as weeks went by without any incidents from Rachel, people slowly started to come around. About 2 months after the court hearing, we received surprising news. Rachel had checked herself into a long-term rehabilitation facility that specializes in treating pregnant women with addiction issues. According to Tom's mother, the reality of the permanent restraining order and the potential of losing custody of her child had finally shaken Rachel enough to seek serious help. She had admitted that she had a problem and that her behavior had been destructive. Tom was cautiously optimistic about this development. We both agreed to take a wait-and-see approach, not wanting to get our hopes up too quickly. Tom's mother has been keeping us updated on Rachel's progress, and so far, it seems she's taking the program seriously. Rachel gave birth to a healthy baby boy 3 months ago. She named him Jack, after their father. It was a bittersweet moment for Tom, who wasn't able to be there due to the restraining order. However, Rachel allowed Tom's mother to send us pictures, which was a small but significant step. As for our family, we've been focused on healing and moving forward. Tom has continued with his therapy, which has been incredibly helpful in processing his feelings about the whole situation. We've also started family therapy to help our children understand what happened and work through their fears and confusion. Slowly but surely, our relationships with Tom's extended family have begun to mend. His mother has come around and apologized for not seeing how serious the situation was earlier. She's been making an effort to rebuild her relationship with us and the kids, which has been nice to see. Last month, we received a letter from Rachel. It was part of her 12-step program, making amends to those she had hurt. In the letter, she took full responsibility for her actions, apologized sincerely, and said she understood why we had to take the actions we did. She didn't ask for forgiveness or to be let back into our lives, she simply wanted to acknowledge the pain she had caused. Rachel also shared that she's been sober for 5 months now and is committed to staying that way for her son. She's enrolled in a program to finish her college degree and is living in a supervised facility for recovering mothers. She mentioned that she's been attending therapy regularly and is working on her codependency issues. Tom and I read the letter together, and it brought up a lot of emotions for both of us. We decided not to respond immediately, feeling that we needed time to process everything. We're still not sure what our relationship with Rachel will look like in the future, if there is to be one at all. But for now, we're just relieved that she's getting the help she needs. As for us, life has returned to a sense of normalcy that we haven't experienced in years. Our kids are doing well, and the tension that had been hanging over our family for so long has finally lifted. Tom and I are stronger than ever, having weathered this storm together. We know there may be challenges ahead, especially as Rachel continues her recovery and raises her son. We've discussed the possibility of gradually allowing supervised contact in the future, but we're in no rush. Any steps toward reconciliation will be slow and carefully considered, always putting our children's well-being first. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. This experience has taught us the importance of setting boundaries and prioritizing our immediate family's needs. It's been a painful journey, but I believe we've come out stronger on the other side.